Hi, hello. Welcome to the stream, everybody. This is the stream we get. I'm home for like 36 hours, not even now, less than 24 now. I'm home for a very brief period of time, and then I am off to St. Louis.
You have returned.
Welcome back, everybody. Old Anvil, NBT, come on in. So we're gonna do some GM prep because that's what I have to do to get ready to DM. I have to prep for my DMing. We got this big live show, and there's always like a little extra pressure. You know, I don't know. I've got some plans, I've got some ideas, but as you know from these live shows, sometimes you prepare a bunch of stuff and then nobody cares. They're just like, we're gonna do this other thing, or they take forever doing something you thought wouldn't be very long, or they breeze through the stuff you did prep, right? So I want to be able to create a couple of like high notes for everybody. Ideally, and I don't think this is going to happen, but ideally we're going to complete the ignition, right? That's what I'm calling this sort of arc that we're in right now is the ignition. Then when they do it wrong and we need to redo it, but like in a slightly different style, we're going to call it the remix to ignition. And that's all of the R. Kelly jokes I'm going to make. That's it. I made the arc. That's it. I'm done. Keys in the lock. We're finished. And so I'm going to get ready for the show. We're going to talk about kind of where we're at right now in the arc. I'm going to look forward. And part of kind of what we're doing right now.
Our illustrious champion returns. Welcome home.
Part of what we're doing right now is thinking about the end game, right? Everything that has started to happen, and I've said this before, returning from the void means that we have begun what I consider to be the penultimate act, right?
Returned.
The game is entering its final phase because the characters are going to be level 20 soon, and that'll be the last act. There'll be one more thing, and then that'll be it. The game will be over. I guess there'll probably be epilogues. So what I think we'll probably end up doing is there'll be this thing, this ritual, the ritual of ignition, that will bring back either, and we'll talk about the details of this. It'll bring back either unnamed
home
or Bahath, and we'll talk about what that'll look like. So that's the plan. They want to bring back the their dead companion, who there's some special rules as regards the people of the void and how we bring them back. So we'll be talking about the general cosmology of Court of Swords. We're gonna be talking about the world. I'm gonna be prepping for this arc. They're gonna try to bring Unnamed back either as herself or as something else. And then from there, we step into this kind of semi-final act. This is the last prep act. This is where you're reaching max level, you're getting a bunch of gear, you're preparing yourself for this thing. And then level 20, I would consider that to be go take on the end game, right? Go take on the last thing. So that, I mean, I've been thinking about this a lot and what it's going to look like, and kind of slowly beginning to imagine the end of the game, right? Slowly imagining the sort of conclusion. So let's talk a little bit about that stuff. Let's talk about where the characters are and kind of what's on the table right now, and then we'll go from there. Oh, I forgot I have to do it manually. There we go. Okay. All right. So where we're at right now is that the characters are in the fortress of the Embers of Imix. Really, they're only true allies for now, right? Oh yeah, also for anybody who is not caught up on Court of Swords, we are now opening the door to Spoiler Town. We're gonna walk through the gates and we're gonna go and get into our house in Spoiler Town. So if you don't want to be an occupant of this lovely villa we have here, in the Spoiler Mountains, it may be time for you to go. I appreciate your coming, but if you don't want to spoil yourself, this is how we go. So, okay. So they're in the fortress right now, and I would consider the fortress to be, well, you know what? Here, let me open a new document here, and let's talk about where we're at. So, okay. Because I want to talk about kind of what options they have for allies or for enemies or kind of whatever, right? Because I need to know, and this is sort of how I do my prep, right? This is sort of how we do it. I will generally start thinking about things based on where we start, right? So right now, the players we have the Embers of Imix. These are sort of the factions at play, right? So we have the Embers of Imix. We have the Mara, of which our predominant focus is the Great Green Worm, right? While we're in the real world, the Great Green Worm has the most influence. The Great Green Worm is the Mara we care about. The worm is the stand-in for all the Mara in general, right? If all the Mara are stuck in the void, occasionally getting to penetrate into the world, the Great Green Worm is the boss of them, the best one at this, the most kind of archetypal. So I think we'll focus on that one for now. So we have the Embers, we have the Mara, we have the Court of Coins, right? Through which we will break down into several sort of sub-factions. We also have, that's right, Southern Wind is around as well. So we have the Remnants of the Court of Swords. Right, Southern Wind, the army, etc. Right, because the Court of Swords isn't dead yet. So there's that. Okay, so we have the Remnants of the Court of Swords, and then we also have Heaven, right? And Heaven is like going through some shit right now, but this is where we're at. Okay, so for me, the most important thing for each of these factions, the most important thing to remember or to know. Oh, and that's a good point. As a neutral party or a sort of the chaotic neutral faction, we also have the red, what are they called? The Red Scale Revenge Society. They might have been the Red Talon Revenge Society. I can't remember, but that's the other one. This is these folks. So these are our players right now, right? This is kind of what's going on. And then obviously the actual player characters, but I won't like that. So the Embers of Imix, and we'll make some notes about them right now and kind of talk about each of these factions and like what they want and what purpose they're going to fulfill for us generally, right? So the Embers of Imix, let's see, let's bump this over one column. There we go. They want to see a return of the Primordial Order, right? They want to see the Fire Lord Ascendant, right? So what they want is they want to return the world to the Primordial Order. They want to go back to the way things were 10,000 years ago. They want to knock over Heaven's tyranny, and they want to return the Primordial Order, and they want to do so with their great Fire Lord Imix at the head, right? They wouldn't necessarily be happy with the return of the Primordial Order without Imix being Ascendant, right? This is their second tier goal as part of this larger one, right? So as a result, they want to see Heaven and the court's structure toppled, right? They don't really care about Harmony, except that Harmony will eventually run into a problem, right? And so I guess the Embers of Imix are allied with the PCs. And I was talking about this before. I think the Embers of Imix might be the PC's only real friends. I think that the Embers might be the only people who don't actively oppose the PCs in some way or another. Because for now, their goal, it's an enemy of my enemy is my friend situation, right? Their goals are aligned with Ramus and Maharib and to a lesser degree, like Berg, because the players all kind of have their own stuff that they want. It's easy to assume that they're all on Team Ramus, but I'm wondering about that, and I've started to kind of poke at that a little bit. So they're allied with the PCs and might be their only friends. If the PCs end up And this is the thing that I'm sort of worried about for their sake. If the characters in this game end up betraying Vani, this whole thing is going to flip and the Embers are going to be their enemy, right? Because it's a delicate alliance right now. So we'll see how that goes. We'll see if, there's that balance there. Okay. All right. So this is the Embers of Imix. This is what they want. The Mara, by way of the Great Green Worm, the Mara wants, what do they want? They want to destroy the world, want to kill the gods and topple heaven, and to sink all beings into a morass of oblivion, basically. Like they want everything to stop existing. Right now, like the Mara have agents in the world, right? And that's our Necromancer King and his army. And the Mara are manipulating, or believe they are, the PCs. So what the Great Green Worm wants, now we've talked about this, right? Oh yeah, it's the Bloody Scale Revenge Society. That's right. Thank you, Twilight Borealis. Twilight Borealis, you have my official blessing as like court historian. You have probably the best record of the whole show, both in mind and on paper, of anybody, myself included. So I appreciate your assistance on this. So the Mara, by way of the Great Green Worm, they want to destroy the world. These are our chaotic evil. If we had to put an alignment on these guys, they're chaotic evil, right? What they want is destruction for what appears to be its own sake. They are ultimately nihilistic, even about their own existence, right? I think that deep down, the true seed of the Mara's power, right, of the Void, is that everything, including the Void itself, must be destroyed. Everything must be sunk into oblivion. The fountain must be extinguished. They want oblivion even for themselves, right? This isn't, I want to kill everybody so I can be the boss. This is, I want to kill everybody so nothing exists. So they are true agents of the Void, agents of darkness and nihilism. They want nothing to exist. And they believe right now, there are several ways to do this, right? The Mara have their Necromancer King, right? The Great Green Worm wants the Necromancer King to cause corporeal chaos, right? And that's working. And then on top of that, they have a backup plan in Ramus Krill, right? So Ramus is their plan to I guess this is the thing. We'll look at the tools that each faction has or whatever, but they have Ramus as this plan where they have injected a Void soul into Ramus, right? Ramus is a fake person, right? Ramus has the Poe that was Ramus Krill, and then also the false Hun, and that Hun is a bomb. Ramus is a walking necro bomb. And what they want is for Ramus ultimately to either go to heaven or die. And I can envision a martyrdom situation where Ramus realizes that he has to use the Mara soul bomb that he has. And if he does, it will destroy heaven at least, but probably it will begin a cataclysmic cascade of necrotic energy that will destroy everything, right? Because the idea is that if Ramus dies, the false soul will go up to heaven, it will be excised from the Poe, and it will be cleansed in the fountain's waters, right? There is a ritual that a god does where the soul is dunked in the waters of the fountain. All of its karma is bled away, and whatever is left gets reincarnated. But if this fake soul gets dunked in heaven's waters, right? If it gets dunked in the fountain, remember what happened with Berg and the fountain, the fake fountain in the Sahir's realm, right? That's more or less the same thing. The fountain's waters are very delicate, and if you dunk Ramus's fake soul in there, you will start a cascade that will destroy the fountain itself, and then heaven, and then also reality. everything will crumble and get sucked down into the void. Because right now, the world, let me break out my hideous diagram here. We haven't looked at the hideous diagram in a long time. Right now, the universe is being held. It's being held in stasis. It's being held in a state of tension between 2 points. It's like a top, right? So let me add to this. Let me show you the sort of tension model. So if we have the world right in the middle, think of it as a disk, right? Think of the world as a disk, and the disk is wobbling, right? The disk would theoretically, like a three-wheeled wagon, the disk will tip one way or another, and everything will go all wonky, right? So it's a flat disk, and the only thing that is keeping it from tipping like this on this axis is the pull of two equal and opposite forces. So if the fountain is here, right, exerting a pull on this metaphysical disk, then so too down here the void exerts an equal and opposite pressure, right? Exactly, like two polarity magnets. So it's floating, the universe, cosmologically, the universe is floating in between the fountain and the void. And so if the void were to stop pulling, or the fountain were to stop pulling, right, we would snap that tension, and eventually, if the fountain goes away, instead of the world being shaped like it's supposed to, like a cool disk, eventually it will become sucked down into the void and destroyed, right? Basically, we're creating a big black hole and it destroys everything. This is the opposite. This is the opposite of the fountain's plan, right? Because what the fountain wants is the same thing. The fountain wants to ultimately destroy the disk. If the fountain wins, the disk will get evaporated upwards into the fountain's light, right? Ultimately, the goal of heaven is they both want the same thing. Heaven wants everything to be big F, right? Big fountain, no matter, no light, no material, just pure magical energy, a return to the pure state of the universe that is all fountain energy. The void wants everything to be big V, right? Everything to be destroyed and wiped out. So really, we're looking at two separate potential apocalypses here, sort of depending on who wins. Yeah. So that's kind of where we're at right now. So the Mara want that. They believe they're manipulating the PCs. Ramus's soul bomb, if it ends up in heaven, the fountain goes, and then from it, like a burning rope, everything else as well. So that's what the Mara ultimately want and are acting through their human agents. And then we'll go from there. Now, I suppose if Ramus could adjust his fake soul somehow to control the bomb or to adjust the bomb, maybe it could be used for something else, right? Maybe they could use it to short circuit the fountain. Maybe they could drop it into the void and destroy the void. But remember, destroying the void would immediately begin the de facto enlightenment of everyone in the universe, because the fountain would take over and it would burn you away. Instead of joining the fountain, you'd be destroyed by it. Is there a difference? Ultimately, I don't know. Does it really matter? I don't know either. I think the thing that the Embers want, if there's a model, because remember the fountain and the void, and this is a modern model, right? This has only been around. The Earth is only 10,000 years old. Here, hold on. I'll use the actual typing tool because I have an alternate model I want to show you as well. So if this is 10,000 years, right? The 10,000 years model, because this is how things have been for now, right? This is the 10,000 years model. The way it used to be was that it was a lot more like this. The fountain existed, and the void existed. Hey, it's Far Verona. The fountain existed and the void existed together, right? And then the world existed around those two, that pair, right? So this is a more like a molecular model where you have a fountain and you have a void, and the two of them kind of orbit one another. The world exists around it, and there's no differentiation between the two, right? Like life and death worked really differently. This is what we'll call the Primordial Model. Oh, don't give me what? No, I was just trying to copy it. Here we go. So this is the Primordial Model, right? So these are the two. This has only been the way the world exists in the last 10,000 years. This is how it used to be, right? Fountain and void were one thing, right? Two cats chasing each other's tail around a tree, right? The yin yang, like that idea of the unified universe, right? And then the 10,000 years model, right? So that's how we used to be, and this is how it is now. I don't know what see the thing with what Ramus wants. It is closer to this, but I wonder, right? I don't know. I mean, Ramus will have to design and implement a new. I guess here we'll do this harmony model. I don't think the thing is Ramus is going to need the use of a pretty significant. Like a metaphysicist or whatever, right? Like, oh, these are backwards. This should be blue because I don't know what the world is going to look like. So that's what is Harmony's model and how does that fucking work? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. Yeah. So I don't know. They're going to have to figure that out. That's not my problem. My problem is not to create solutions, but to create problems. All right. What does it look like? Who even knows? Yeah, is it possible to merge the fountain and the void into one thing, right? The Ramus, the diamond at the center of the universe. Can we make the void one thing, right? Is it harmony as a gray void in the middle? Like, do we make them indistinct entities? So that's the thing, is what is it going to look like when they do this thing? Yeah. So this is how things used to be. This is how things are, and that's kind of where we're at right now. So, cutting back to the actual universe, the non running around trying to figure it out bullshit type of universe, the Ramoverse. Let's look at what's going on. So the Bloody Scale Revenge Society, they have a much less enormous plan for things. Want to kill all the servants of the Mara. Want to kill all the servants of heaven. Don't care much about the primordials. And want to take back the land for the people, right? So they don't necessarily have a wide scale, like they only really care about the Court of Swords, and they just want to get it back for the people that live there. They want to take it back and be like, no, you don't have to serve anyone. Yeah, they want to live without being harassed by cosmology. Exactly. Yeah, exactly. They don't care much about the cults. They don't really care. They just want to kill the servants, right? They're just like, I don't care who you work for, but get the fuck out of get off my land, right? The Bloody Scale Revenge Society, remember, it was founded by, and I guess this is a pretty big spoiler. So I'm going to count down from 5 in case you really don't know this yet. 3, 2, 1. Okay, spoilers within spoilers. So obviously the Bloody Scale Revenge Society was founded by a little girl and some kobolds 10 years ago. And she hates the people who failed her, and she hates the people who caused that problem, right? She lost her little brother when she was a kid, and she was adopted by this clan of kobolds, and she wants to get revenge. That's why they're called that. And she's basically Batman, right? In the sense that like her whole village died, her little brother died, her family was killed, and she sees it as both the fault of the Mara because their soldiers did it, and the fault of heaven because heaven made it so, right? It was heaven's destiny. She blames the courts because they sent these magistrates who failed her, right? The everything about her former life it was a mistake. It was wrong. And so now she's mad. And so her and her dragon friend and all of her kobolds and like the other bandits and displaced, she's got a bunch of like Discordian anarchists who are just like, we're going to take this place back. We don't need God. We don't need the Mara. We don't need any of this stuff. And so they're, again, neutral on, here's the thing. If Ramus, right, they are neutral to the PCs because same enemy, different plans. Because if they get rid of the courts, if they get rid of the Mara, and then Ramus is like, oh, by the way, I'm High Priest Ramus, everyone join the Harmony religion, she'll try to kill him. Right? Because she'll be like, no, we're not replacing four kings with one. She won't stand for it. So she's a dangerous, they're all dangerous firebrands, but she's especially that way. And if they make friends with her, if we see this connection happen, they need to be careful because she's not going to be a good ally forever. As soon as they start trying to put in a new structure of power, stab. Yeah, she's not going to stand for it. Okay, so the Court of Coins, they want a few things. So, want to restore order to the Court of Swords, and you'll notice I put that in quotes. They want to set things up so that they're on top. Other courts subservient, right? Install an empire in place of the current system. So ultimately what the Court of Coins wants is they're watching all these other courts fall, right? The Court of Cups is sort of too far away and too isolated to really do anything. The Court of Swords is a total fucking shit show right now. The Court of Wands capital has been destroyed by a giant monster. And so the Court of Coins is looking around and they're like, you know what? Somebody needs to step up and take control. Somebody needs to put their hand on the goddamn steering wheel and guide us back. So I think eventually there may be a plot, and I'm thinking about this as sort of the next arc. There may be a plot where the Court of Coins starts their empire, right? Where they're like, we are installing martial law. Our armies are marching into these destabilized areas. We need to restore order and basically take over. Yeah, like the Middle Empire. So their main jam is, for now, under the auspices of restoring order, they have agents all throughout the world, and eventually they're going to want to like start this new plan and have a bunch of different coups and essentially become first among equals, right? Yeah. So install an empire in place of current system. They want to repel the Mara, want to be chosen by heaven. Yeah. Okay. All right. So they want to kind of return to. There was a period in history, right, where, okay, so hold on. We're going to go back to the shitty Adam Coble drawing. So let's talk about history, right? So current day, right? Here's today, right? And then here's like the creation of the world. Here's our timeline, right? So like 10,000 years ago. We'll put that right in the, I don't know, right in the middle. So that's where, and here, if you're having trouble, I'll use a different, let's use white. That'll be easier to see, right? There you go. Okay, so we got now. And we've got then, right? So 10,000 years ago, heaven founded, right? So this is the big change. Heaven was founded, this happened. We begin the 10,000 years model, but there's a period of called the formation, which I need a little more room here. There's a period called the formation where things were maybe not so stable, right? So during the formation, while we're all like getting our shit together, during this period, we had a time during which the courts were being founded, the various villages were being brought into line, the first magistrates were created. The magistrates would go out to the villages and say, "Greetings, fellow humans. I see that you worship Imix the Fire Lord or Maru Bhavati, King of the Mountain. That's great. But here's the deal. Your god is going to go to sleep, and instead you're going to listen to this fortune teller and these 26, I think, priests. They're going to tell you what to do. We're going to install 4 people as your king, your queen, your knight, and your page. So these people are in charge now. These are the rules for finding the next ones when these ones die. And this is how it goes, right? And some villages were like, yay, law and order, peace, we love it. Because remember, these first magistrates were coming out and they were saying like, hey, so you're really important and special. I know that you and your ancestors have spent thousands and thousands of years worshiping this pile of rocks, right? And yes, your pile of rock god was cool, but the pile of rock god has been installed in the bureaucracy, and now your god is the god of piles of rocks and doesn't really care about you. But that's okay because humans, you're so special. Humans are the best. You're the most important thing in the universe. You're more important than that pile of rocks. And so the humans are like, yay! Some of them were like, how dare you? You can't take our pile of rock god from us. You can't put our god to sleep. We're gonna fight you, right? So there was this initial like punch, this initial fighting that happened. And in some places, like the Court of Coins initially, right? In the Court of Coins, there was this kind of transition period where the Court of Coins was already pretty advanced. I imagine that the city that is now the capital of the Court of Coins was the first human city. It's kind of our I guess. Or our, despite being inspired by medieval China, it's our Sumeria, right? This is like the first human cities were built in that place. So they have the most human civilization all the way back behind the foundation of heaven. So there was initially an emperor, right? This is the story of Emperor Fei, right? And so this emperor ruled the court of coins as it was becoming the Court of Coins, fought off the first Mara when they showed up, back when the void and the fountain were still, back when the disc was still wobbling a little. So the Court of Coins, there is this subset, and I think that as a political movement, we've just learned that 10 Pillars of Gold belongs to this political subset. There's a political party within the Court of Coins that want to return to this period, right? When heaven was good and existed, but the Court of Coins was the best, and we had an emperor, and we were allowed to seize territory, right? There was a lot of territory grabbing early on when the world was being formed, and where they were saying like, cool, this village needs to belong to the Court of Coins or the Court of Swords. Magistrates figure it out, right? That initial land grab as the borders were being designed. During that point, that's why the Court of Coins is so big, is because Emperor Fei, he's our Genghis Khan, right? So Emperor Fei spread out from the center of the Court of Coins from and seized all this territory, right? And so the Court of Coins wants to go back to this time where it was like, I honestly just need another piece of paper, but basically where it was like the Court of Coins was huge and in charge and everyone else is servant states. So Faye is our guy. He's our war bodhisattva, and he's the guy that had that in charge, and he's the one that. So yeah, the party is tied to that political movement within the court, and we've just learned that 10 Pillars of Gold is one of those guys, right? He's an agent of that particular political subset. So anyway, that's what the Court of Coins wants. Mostly that's how they're going to affect change right now, is through 10 Pillars. Now, the remnants of the Court of Swords, these guys are deep, deep heaven loyalists, right? So they want to repel the Mara, want to restore law and order to the Court of Swords, want to reject foreign influence in the court, and I think that's probably want to rebuild. So these guys basically just want things to go back to how they were before the first episode of the show, where the Court of Swords was an actual court instead of like a little strip of land stuck between their older brother, the Court of Coins, and then this horrible thing that is eating them from inside, right? So the remnants of the Court of Swords just wants to rebuild. They want to fix things. They want to find the night, right? They want to restore heaven's orders, and they're heaven loyalists. Heaven, as we've talked about before, right? Heaven wants, they want what they've always wanted, right? Wants to, I guess, like enlighten all humans, right? Yeah, they want to push for that ultimate goal of that, and to do so, they wants to retain control, wants to destroy or subjugate the Mara, right? Get rid of them, retain control of the world, and they wants to basically want control. They're the lawful good. Like, if I had to, I guess this is the thing, if I had to make an alignment for each of these, the Embers of Imix are chaotic good, probably. The Mara are lawful evil. No, they're chaotic evil, right? Because they don't want to install, they're chaotic evil pretending to be lawful evil, right? The Necromancer King is lawful evil, but the Mara ultimately are chaotic. The Bloody Scale Revenge Society are chaotic neutral. They just want to fuck shit up. Court of Coins is lawful neutral. Or maybe lawful evil. Remnants is definitely lawful neutral, and Heaven is lawful good. If we were to do traditional D&D alignments for these things, that's kind of how I would see that. So Heaven just wants to like save everyone by controlling them and telling them what to do. The Heaven, there isn't one splinter group in Heaven. There's a bunch of different, I guess, ultimately wants to survive its own internal schisms. Right? Where in Heaven, there's a group that wants to almost enlighten humanity, but not quite, right? They want to bring everybody up to just the edge of oblivion, but not jump over. They're not brave enough to fall into the void truly, right? To let the fountain take them. Some of them don't believe that heaven should be uplifted. They believe that humanity should be like a zoo instead, and we should like care for them and tend to them, but not enlighten them, right? Don't let the inmates run the asylum. That's another faction of heaven. But generally, when we talk about heaven as one thing, this is what it wants. So this is kind of the things that are currently in play. There are other things like the Sahir, but they're all independently, right? There's no one Sahir organization, so they're out there. The Farang are licking their wounds, but they're not gone. There's also the Outer Chaos. We had talked about that before, right? The like thing that came, I guess this is the other thing here. Let me me see here. So over here, this thing over in this direction, there is another time period right there that I haven't really named or thought too much about, but this is back here sometime. There was a struggle between what would eventually become the Goliaths, right? So this is the giants fighting against some unknown force. This is another period in history that we don't fully understand. And it's funny, I'm playing a little no rules game of Microscope with myself right now. We're building this timeline by like, it's almost exactly the same. Like, was it good or bad for humanity? Right? Yeah, pretty good. I like it. Yeah. Okay. So that's this period. That also happened, but that's outside of, we don't really worry about that too much for now. Yeah, the outer chaos is probably the same outer space as the Farang. There's this like external, we talked about it, right? This big question mark here. Because the Farang are outside of the world, right? They're outside of the model, which I'm sure makes a ton of sense to you if you're just seeing this for the first time. So, yeah. So the Farang are kind of like out. They're licking their wounds right now. We're not going to worry about them. They may actually never come up in this campaign again, but we'll see. So, okay. So this is what everybody wants on a macro level. Now, the players, my kind of job here is to look at what the players of my game have indicated are their desires, right? What do the players want? So for me, it's really easy to figure that out. All I have to do is just go to my doc here and look. So part of this thing, part of the reason why I do the goals system is because I want the players to tell me what they want so that I can focus on that stuff in the game. Is there a way for me to, line spacing, fix that shit. Yeah, that's better. Okay. All right. So what we know, Ramus wants to bring Unnamed back to life and turn 10 pillars into an ally. So I guess what I want to do here is goal primary and secondary goals, right? If we had a quest line, if we had a quest log, like from a video game, what would these goals be? So for primary, I'm looking for anything that's shared. And then secondary is stuff that's not directly related to the main quest, but that we could do as sort of downtime stuff, right? So bring Unnamed back to life is obviously the big shared one. Turn 10 pillars into an ally. That's where Ramus and 10 pillars overlap. That's fine. They'll be able to have scenes for that. So learn more about the new belt, find a way to resist future possession. That's for Berg. So some secondary goals here are going to be learn about items, because we have another one, right? So the Wicked Edge, the regalia of Emperor Faye. So these are learn about items and history, interrogate the world, learn about lore, make lore checks, right? So these are things that I can just dip in as needed for like little personal scenes for individual characters or for overlapped characters, right? Obviously the primary goal is restore Unnamed to life, whatever that looks like. This is our main goal. This is what the session and sort of the next future episodes are probably going to be like. Okay, so Maharib, right? Find peace with what happened to Amira. Explore the power of the Wicked Edge. We've got those covered. Secondary goals, like emancipate the orcs. Like this is a big goal for a very distant future. But it's certainly a thing. I don't think it's going to come up really until the next arc, but certainly 10 pillars can work on it. And then I suppose, and I don't know if this is a primary goal. I guess this is a secondary goal, right? I'm thinking about this as like a Fallout quest. So the secondary goal too is share the knowledge of the ignition ritual with someone, right? Who is going to get that? Because we'll talk about that next, right? What is the ignition ritual, and how does it matter, right? So let's talk about that, because it looks like to me, and there's a reason why I'm kind of calling this arc the ignition, because that's what's going on. That's the main thing. Let's talk about my notes, and then I'll make some new notes about the ignition itself. So I actually have, so these are my written notes. Normally you only see these in the zine, but that's okay. So these are my written notes. This is what it looks like when I make notes about the game. So what do we know about the ignition, right? So in effect, this is going to be more complicated cosmology horseshit, and I'm sorry. So in effect, the primordial spirit of Bahath, who is a dragon of flame, right? A fire dragon. So the primordial spirit of Bahath is trapped in the greatsword with the same name, right? So we have this sword named Bahath, and Bahath as a spirit, Bahath as a thing is the sword. The sword is one with the dragon. It's just in the form of a sword instead of the form of a dragon. So Agni's ritual through Vani will instead bind that spirit to unnamed her body, right? And effectively awakening her and granting her life. So let me show you. It's funny because in the cosmology of the world, this isn't a resurrection. This spell, this magic, it wouldn't be used the way you think it is. Let's talk about this. So yeah, they're making a magic item. Exactly. That's all they're doing. So I'm going to make this, let's make this like 70 wide. So I have another area over here. There we go. Okay. All right. So here's what they have. They have two objects. They've got a magic sword. Okay. So this magic sword. Okay. And then they have this body. Oh God, here we go. Arms, legs, other arm, weirdly long neck on one side. Sad face. Okay, all right, perfect. I had to draw these big so that I could write on them. All right. So they have this body and they have this sword. And normally a sword is made out of steel, right? Or whatever. And it's empty. It's just an object. It has no magic or whatever. It's just a piece of metal. It's a piece of metal you kill people with. A body with no soul is just a lump of meat. And normally a body will have a bad soul, right? It'll have a cloud soul and it'll have a clear soul. It'll have a hun and a po, and that's what makes it a person. Yay, right? I have a soul. I'm a person. But a body with no soul isn't a person. It's just a lump and it doesn't do anything. So what they're going to try and do, the ignition is a ritual that basically takes a soul. It takes contained spiritual energy, whether that's a person soul or a dragon or whatever, and it puts it into an object. It's called a corpse, exactly. Let me write this down. We have one of those, and it happens to be Bahath. Now, Bahath, because Bahath is a dragon, works a bit different than a person, right? So here's Bahath. Bahath is both soul and flesh, and that's what makes primordials and creatures like them special, right? Bahath is soul and flesh as one. Now, it used to be that we had this other thing called unnamed. I put her in green. So we have this thing called unnamed, right? Boop, and there it is. Now, the problem is that when she died, when unnamed died, she used to be happy. She's like, yay, I'm a thing, I'm a person, right? But then she died, and now there's no thing called unnamed anymore. Where did the thing go, right? What is it? Bahath is in the sword. So what they're going to try to do, what the ignition intends to do, is move this spirit from the sword, right, into this body, but with a little luck, the body will remember and be able to subvert the soul and become unnamed, right? Making happy time again. However, what might happen instead is that all it does is it transfers the soul, and now Bahath has a new body. This might also happen, right? What we want, ultimately, what we want is for the soul to look like this. So imagine there's the body's memory. There's the body's memory of itself, right? The anti-void particle. So this memory, this soul's memory of itself, this is what void denizens look like. They're, in a way, denizens of the void are like void gods, like void primordials, in the sense that they can't die, right? That's true of people like Igni and dragons and all that shit too. So they can't really die. In the void, it's whether you remember who you are or not. That's all that matters. And so in that way, Bahath is kind of the same, but instead of being made out of like void memory, Bahath is made out of fire. So what they really want to do, the ignition should be able to take this spirit. If I can click, I can't even perform the ritual. Move, you stupid thing. Fine, I'll delete you and make another one. Basically, here's the plan, right? They want to take this thing, they want to move it from the sword, and they want to create a fake soul. The question is just going to be, like with any good episode of America's Next Top Model, we got to figure out if Unnamed wants to be on top. So they're essentially creating a fake Hun and a fake Poe. Who is the Hun and who is the Poe, right? Is it Unnamed subverting Bahath's powers to become a person, or does Bahath subvert the body of Unnamed and take it over? Either way, the sword's gonna get fucked up, but like, which one is which, right? Who is in charge? And so that's part of the ritual, right? So we talked about this. The ritual requires 10 or 20,000 GP of raw magical material, right? A vessel suitable to contain Bahath's essence, a symbolic bridge that exists between flame and shadow, right? A beach, if you will, and then a gift for the Fire Lord to appease his anger, because Bahath belongs to the Fire Lord. So what has to happen is they basically need to disenchant the sword with all this 20,000 GP bullshit, capture Bahath, and place it into Unnamed shell, and then create an Unnamed golem, essentially. So then Unnamed has to overcome Bahath. Now, I am going to... Can Ramus himself be the bridge? He's been touched by flame and has a shadow soul. That is a great idea. Absolutely. Yes. Ramus himself could be the bridge. Terrifying, but yes. So here's the thing. Let's talk about Ramus bridges. Right? But no, that's a great point. So I've left this open so the players will do this. It's their job to figure out. I put the solution in front of them. It's like the ritual move in Dungeon World. I picked a few things and I said, if you do these things, you can have what you want, right? So the ritual itself, let's talk about that. The ignition of flesh. So originally it's an enchantment ritual, right? We talked about that. And let's talk about how it works. So we know what it requires. We already talked about that. So, okay, the ignition of flesh. So originally a primordial forge ritual used to create and imbue the living world with the magic and power of the primordials. Probably most commonly used by primordial priests in the time before heaven to create totems and fetish objects empowered by a tiny spark of their primordial god's energy. So you might be blessed enough to take an aspect of the river, right? So you live in a village, and your village has a river that runs through it, and you worship that river because it brings you food and it allows you to trade with other villages. And so the ignition of flesh, under whatever name, might be learned by your shamans or your priests to bring forth the magic, right? Bring forth the magic of the river and place it into a boat or place it into a spear, and it will teach that spear or teach that boat the magic of the magic of that creature, of that primordial. So it's not generally used to reincarnate or revivify humans, but in this case, it'll work because unnamed, basically just an empty golem shell, right? Ready for a soul. Now, I guess we can talk about outcomes, right? So, assuming the ritual is performed properly with the correct materials, the outcome will be one of the following. Okay, so what I imagine is going to happen, let's look at some alternate timelines here. So 1, unnamed defeats and does not spare Bahath, right? Unnamed defeats and spares Bahath. Not Bathoth, Bahath, okay. Bahath defeats unnamed, and then I guess both, right? Sparing her, or Bahath defeats unnamed, and we'll talk about what each of these might look like. Consuming her. Okay, so if these things happen, what will be the outcome? Okay, here we go. All right, so in this case, I wonder why I did that. That was weird. There we go. No, I want a bullet list. Stop it. Okay, whatever. All right. So if unnamed defeats and doesn't spare Bahath, then we get a pure void creature in the form of unnamed, a wound on the fabric of the world, a servant of the Mara entirely. And as a result, one that is initially fountain allergic and is detectable by her absence of a soul, right? So this is the Mara ending, right? So we get unnamed back, and unnamed is a pure creature of shadow, not truly a denizen of the world, and has to learn how to survive here, and is an enemy of heaven, right? Heaven will be, this is the kind of person, this kind of creature is a demon, right? She's a demon, a demonic entity in the world, hunted by the forces of heaven, etc., right? Or if unnamed defeats Bahath and chooses to spare him, the two merge with unnamed's memory soul acting as a stand-in for the Hun, and Bahath's primordial urges as the Poe. This creates a functionally normal tiefling, and unnamed can join the civilizations of the living world. There you go. So she just becomes like a person. Okay. And then if Bahath defeats unnamed, so this is another option, right? So if Bahath defeats unnamed and chooses to spare her, the two merge with Bahath as the Hun and unnamed as the Poe soul. This would mean unnamed is essentially lost, and a new shadow dragon sorcerer entity is created. Functionally a normal creature for the purposes of heaven, etc. Right. And then if Bahath defeats unnamed and consumes her, we get unnamed is destroyed. Bahath becomes a self-sufficient, autonomous Draco golem in the body of a tiefling. Essentially, basically becomes Bahath. Unnamed gets wiped out. Bahath in the body of a tiefling. A brand new entity, such that the world has never seen before. There you go. Okay. So these are our kind of 4 outcomes as I see them. If unnamed, so if unnamed is the Poe when they die, does she come back as a ghost? No, she would be destroyed. Yeah, her urges would affect Bahath, right? This would be like a shadow dragon version of Bahath, touched by what it consumes. But yeah. So that's how that goes. Now, I've already prepared the big fight between the two of them, and I know how it goes. I think I'm not gonna spoil it. If they don't fight at all, that won't happen. Someone has to come out on top. I guess theoretically they could just wipe each other out somehow, in which case the ritual fails, the sword is destroyed, and Unnamed's memory spirit is gone, and Bahath is returned to the Fire Lord, I suppose. So I do have the fight all prepared. I kind of don't want to spoil it. I'll save it for now. Maybe we'll talk about it a bit later, but for right now, these are the outcomes. This is what we're leading up to. We already talked about the requirements, right? And I have my little checklist of what must be done, right? Our vessel of containment. So I suppose what we need, I'll make another note here, but what is needed? The process, right?